Hello and welcome. Oh wait, that's not me. Sorry. Hello and welcome to another fully live episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinzie. I am a security researcher and not a video producer in charge of the stream today. So anything can and will happen yet again. Good to see everyone today. And I am going to be heading off to the RSA conference soon. So if you are also going to be at the RSA conference, make sure to come by and say hello, because I'm going to be doing a very fun Wi-Fi hacking game. A lot of people in the stream today, probably because I'm actually on time. This is a miracle because the screen that I'm kind of keeping track of in front of the camera fell down today, right before the stream, because it's held up by zip ties. So I'm glad I was able to get on at the correct time, and good to see all of you, James and Nils and everybody else in the chat. So all right, lots of cool stuff to talk about today, but of course, I want to answer your hacker-related questions. So if you are live in the chat, I'm looking at you, and I will highlight your question and answer it to the best of my ability, while I also go through some really cool stuff that happened this week. So one of them, and I've kind of shown this off. Oh my gosh, that was so scary. I picked the cryptozoology dogs by accident. One of those things was I was finally able to design and manufacture a new PCB that was with our good friend Angelina Stasobi. I'm going to go ahead and switch my screen back on. There you go. And you can see this is designed to be a beginner soldering board. Basically, we're doing a middle school age cyber camp in Montana. It's the first time I've done something like this, and I'm really, really excited. However, I want to make sure that before they get to soldering anything, of consequence, like some of these people may never have soldered before. So I wanted to make a really cute and simple board that still has some really cool properties. Now, this is no programming. This is all analog circuits. And personally, one of my favorite things from my electronics class that I took at Pasadena City College was analog circuits, being able to make something that's fun, that explains the properties of electricity, and also is just generally something that's really cool. So we made this circuit board. I'm going to switch away for a second because I actually have it here. And the idea for this, so first of all, make sure to make a BOM, a bill of materials, for every project you do. I thought that because there's only 13 components on this board, I would be fine. But it turns out I forgot the switch. So now I have to use just a little bit of wire in order to rig this to turn on all the time. But what it does is you take these 3-color RGB LEDs, you solder them into the eyes, you add a little coin cell battery holder on the back, and you're able to then tune this to whatever color you want. Red, blue, and this is, sorry, it's there we go, and green. So this means you can tune the board to whatever color you want. I've been just tuning it to kind of like random colors I see around me, but I can see it might be cool to do like a challenge where they need to tune this to a specific color code or get it close enough in order to unlock something that reacts to color. So they could either go around and try to find something that's that color, or they could complete their board and then use it to unlock a color sensor that's looking for a specific color value or something like that. Anyway, so this was a really fun project, just being able to make something that is this cute, this easy to do. And also it's just analog circuits. It teaches about how voltage works. It teaches about the purpose of resistors. These little whisker resistors also came out super cute. So, sorry. So yeah, I was very impressed by this, how coming out looking as it does, it is so cute and fun to play with. So yeah, I expect to see this. I'll probably do a larger run of these, and I'm going to make a couple modifications. It's so fun to play with. A couple modifications, maybe a 3D printed backing so that the sharp back part doesn't accidentally get anyone, and then make it a little bit easier to wear as a badge. But if anybody's interested in these, honestly, they're 2 hours worth of soldering teaching. I'm designing it mostly for educators who want to get their students started on their first soldering project without have it too complicated, but still have kind of a big payoff and reward with zero programming. So this is really fun. I'll probably put it up at some point in the next 2-3 weeks or so as I get the final version in. But yeah, very fun little educational project I worked on this week. All right, what did I study at university? That's a good question. So when I went to Pasadena City College, I decided I wanted to go for, well, I was basically doing Nullbyte at that point, and I felt a little bit left out. I was writing these tutorials and they were really cool, but I was learning from people online and I didn't totally have all the background information to participate as well. I felt like I was learning other people's projects, but I wanted to either improve on them or add to them. and I didn't feel like I had the right education. So I went back to Pasadena City College. It was free in California, which was super cool. And I tried to take computer science classes, and I just quickly found that I'm not very good at math. I don't enjoy it that much, and I really like applied or hands-on things. So I started to make more friends in the computer science club, and I ended up getting involved with a bunch of like electrical engineers who were super cool and recommended I take some classes in electrical engineering. And when I went over to that side, I found that between hackers and makers, I'm a really good bridge because I really enjoy both of those things. And I found that the ability to apply what I learned in programming to something that I could physically punish with a hammer if it wasn't working in electronics, or that would just explode if I wired it the wrong way, that was enough fun and danger for me to really like get all the other stuff to kind of click together. And it helped me create the niche that I have now, where I'm very specifically interested in like microcontrollers and smaller, like cheaper computers to play around with. So that's what I did. I also took a lot of networking classes. I failed most of them, but my favorite by far was the routing and switching Cisco class. Sorry. The routing and switching class was like very intense, but kind of gives you a good fundamental of how all traffic on the internet flows. I found it to be like one of the better classes that I failed while I was at school. So it was very difficult. The teacher was like very, very into a subject, but frankly, that's why I liked it. So I would recommend like checking out networking, checking out electrical engineering. Like both of those, I feel like are really good things for computer science people, or people that are interested in hacking and making, but are not really sure if computer science specifically is what they want to do, because there's a lot of more applied and hands-on stuff in other fields. And I find that sometimes that's what keeps people interested. Um, Okay. All right. Here's another question. Um, do you think juice jacking is still dangerous? So what is juice jacking? So that is when you provide like a free public charger and people plug their device into it, and typically their device will be at least initially unlocked. So just like, having your phone and plugging it in, like that gives people the ability to, when you have an unlocked phone, like very quickly run like actions, like on something like an OMG cable or something like that. So yeah, this is definitely still dangerous. The NSA was offering free charging at their booth at the last RSA conference that I went to. I politely declined. They seemed to think that was funny. So yeah, there's definitely, it's funny that they were offering like free charging at their booth, and then like, a year or two later, we're like, oh no, juice jacking. So yeah, don't do that. It's a bad idea. And frankly, like I've never really relied on like public infrastructure to charge anything ever. So the fact that like people expect there to be public charging stations out there for them, just bring like a battery pack and like a cable, like put it in your bag, whatever. That being said, like there's easier ways of getting access to power. Like again, having your own charger, even a small compact one, means that like you're not plugging into, really it's the USB cable that's the dangerous part here. Like if you're bringing your own USB cable and you're just plugging into like a power outlet, like I don't think there's much of a risk here. But if you're plugging into the USB part, then yes, it is definitely still a risk, especially if your phone is unlocked while doing it. That is when it's probably at its most vulnerable. Yeah, so also James is saying that a couple people think it's overblown. Yeah, I mean, for all the reasons I just said, like I have never relied on a public charger to charge my phone in memory, at least for this phone. And I can't really think of many times in the past that I've relied on a public charger. I might have borrowed a charger from another person that offered like a couple times, but in general, it's very rare that I find myself charging on like the USB end of like a outlet that I don't trust, basically. If it's my own charger, I really am not that worried about it. But I would say, yeah, like it might be a little bit overblown in that the average person probably won't be doing this. But I do see like chargers at like the mall and the airport and stuff. And like, so maybe it is like more of a thing that I think of. And maybe there is a group of people who have been like living it up, never having to bring their own charger anywhere, just using random public ones. For those people, I would say your days might be over of being able to trust that process, because there's a lot of things you can do nowadays that yeah, it might make you want to reconsider that. What is your favorite app for PCB designing? So our people on our team use a variety of different tools. I started out using Easy EDA, and that's like as implied, pretty easy way to get started. A lot of our people also use KiCad. So Angelina, I believe, used KiCad to make this specific design. I think one of our other designers also uses KiCad. So KiCad seems to be the consensus for people that do this very often or regularly. So if you're looking to, just get started, then there are a number of different things you could try, Easy EDA being one of them, but KiCad seems to be the one that's preferred by people who do this a lot. So that would be my recommendation, KiCad. I haven't really mastered it myself, but I have played around with it a little bit, and it does look like it has a little bit of a learning curve, but so many people are recommending it to me that I have to say that that's probably the best one to get started with. Okay, as for juice jacking, how about just using a USB write blocker? So you could also theoretically just, use a power only USB cable. Now you might have a data USB cable that eventually breaks and some of the data lines go out and it becomes a power USB cable. That is just one of the two types of, cables you can get. If you have a power only USB cable, then yeah, like nothing can really be transmitted like down that line. So if you carry around like a power only USB cable, then plugging into an unfriendly like power block or power adapter should, in my experience, be fine. It's only if you're using a data supporting cable that would be an issue. So just be aware there's two different types of cables. There's data cables and power cables when it comes to USB. And power cables will not transfer data, and they are your best bet for creating like a barrier. Yeah, you can have like a USB blocker or something, but you might as well just have like, a power only cable because that's going to prevent most of these attacks that involve data anyway, unless there's some like secret other attack that just like modulates the power supply in a certain way and does something, which I'm not aware of. All right, let's see. There's so many good questions today, but I also kind of want to go over a couple things that I posted. One thing that's really fun about the like color tuner PCB was being able to tune it to random colors. So like this cat's eyes, I was able to get. I'm getting there. There's a little bit more green, but I was able to get a decent match. And then I have to shout out Bing again. I've been using Bing, as you know, to create cryptozoology lost dog posters. So they are varying levels of disturbing. Like I told it to make it look like a out of proportion alpaca and some other stuff, and then kind of like putting these around to see if anybody, like wants to return this or at least warn me if they find it. But I found that it also is pretty good at designing DEF CON badges. Whoops, that's DEF CON related, but that's not it. I'm gonna find it. Don't worry. There we go. So I'll just do it on Mastodon. Why not? So some of these, you apparently Bing is the only implementation of like DALL-E that allows you to do certain terms, which I won't mention, but there's a lot of, let's just say there's a lot of banned terms where if you wanted to get this kind of like eyes out and like the tongue out, there's a couple words you could use to describe this that are not permitted on some of the other AI image generators, yet Bing is still perfectly happy to crank out these DEF CON badges. The funny thing is though, I told it to make like a cat-shaped DEF CON badge and I gave it some suggestions on how like the eye should look. And then it went ahead and tried to write DEF CON on it, but it can't do it. Like a lot of these AI image generators cannot get words right. So I accidentally summoned Defo and Danikin. And there were some other varyingly horrifying ones that came out of this as well. I just have to say though, the free Bing image generator is actually pretty good. I've been using it for all kinds of like mischief. And in this case, being able to design some unique DEF CON style badges actually looks pretty cool. Like I have to admit, I am impressed by how it did this. And I've got a lot of results that came out that I'm not sure I could use. My friends told me that this is, and I quote, too lewd for children. I think it's the tongue that they don't like. I don't find this at all that way. But I will say I tried to make a couple ink art animations and stuff, trying to use Bing, and eventually it just started throttling me. So I had a lot of fun with the AI image generator this week. Like if you haven't tried it out, there's a lot of interesting things you can do on Bing that haven't been shut down and on some of the other platforms. So still a lot of cool AI stuff going on. Another thing that I wanted to mention is we did some talking last week about how AI can potentially introduce vulnerabilities by writing code for you and then refusing to check them. So I wrote a little disinformation quiz and I was trying to get ChatGPT to be able to read a piece of read a piece of information and then spin it in a couple different ways and quiz the person on which ones it's using. And it absolutely will not do that. It has been hardened a little bit since the last time I attempted this. So things like asking it to check a piece of code for vulnerabilities or to do anything that could be construed as outside its have been like pretty harshly shut down. So what that means is it will generate old and potentially vulnerable code, but it will not check it for you. So like, I see a lot of problems with the way that people are potentially using ChatGPT for adding code to their projects. I've been using it a lot this week for trying to add code, and it's frustrating that, of course, the learning cutoff date means that it's using old libraries and other things that have been updated since then. And then again, it will refuse to check whether or not something is vulnerable because it certainly it certainly doesn't want to do anything bad. All right. What is your favorite voltmeter and soldering iron pen? So I can't say voltmeter. I just get them from like Home Depot where I am. Like I don't have a special brand that I like, but I will say the soldering iron pen, the TS80 and the TS9 or TS100 are my two go-to brands for when I'm traveling anyway. I'll use like fancier ones. Like, let me see if I can I'll pull it up so you can see what I'm talking about. So the TS80 is, yes, here we go. I'll turn this back on, is something I've been using for like away projects for a good amount of time. What's cool about it is it uses this crazy like audio jack style like thing in order to plug in different soldering iron tips. So you can literally just like unplug it and plug it back in and get these like different nice soldering tips for a specific project. I really like it, honestly. So the TS80 is actually the more expensive version. The TS100, I believe, is the one that's a little bit less expensive. The differences are the TS80 takes USB Type-C, although only like a specific USB type cable. Like, I don't know why, but it won't charge off of any of my other powering blocks. It only works with its own one and like maybe one other cable. I don't know why. So that's a little bit of a plus or minus. But I will say that you can pop these soldering iron tips in and out really easily. You don't need to like unscrew like a hot little screw like you need to do with the TS100. And frankly, I find having to carry around like a little barrel jack like power thing for the TS100 to be kind of tedious, and I got kind of tired of it after a while. So yeah, I really like these. If you're looking to do some mobile soldering, if you want to keep it under like $100, like I recommend these a lot. I find that they are really good little soldering irons for beginners and people who are just getting started. TS100s are a little bit cheaper and there are some trade-offs. But like I said, like either one will be fine if you're looking for a good and cheap soldering iron. All right, that's a great question. All right, so there's a lot of people leaving questions. I should probably read them. No real question, just want to let you know you're the reason I got interested in the whole subject of cybersecurity. 90% of what you say is above my knowledge level, but I love your content. That is okay, and also thank you. So when I started doing this, I was a complete beginner. I was coming from a couple of jobs in tech where I worked at Uber for a little bit, during doing like business research for them, and then like converting sales for Uber Eats. I worked for this weird like transportation logistics startup, and then I also had worked at like a music venue as a bouncer and as their like head of security for like 4 years. So I did not have a background in like writing programs or understanding how technology works aside from like creating business systems and like doing certain types of research. So like I had a lot of stuff go over my head. And I started with the things that were cheap and easy. And that's kind of where I've stayed in terms of the content I'd like to make. I like to make content that is around, you know, Raspberry Pis or microcontrollers or other things that are like really easy for beginners to get their teeth into. And if you don't understand it and it ends up sitting on your shelf or something, like you shouldn't feel bad about, you know, like $120, $150 item that you never use. If you get like a little like microcontroller and you play with it once or twice and it cost you, you know, like $20, $30 or something, like that's not a big deal. That's why I started out working with Raspberry Pis. I focus most of my content around things that everybody has, because like it sucks to not feel included. And this is supposed to be a place that is like comfortable for people to learn cybersecurity, even if you don't have a background in it. And like, it's okay to be a beginner. It's okay to make mistakes. So I think that was the big change when I took over as editor of Nullbyte. The previous guy was very like, I'm the master of everything. And like, you don't even get to know who I am. I'm from the government, or maybe I'm not. Like, you know, like all the mystery and stuff, like I just find to be a little distracting when like this stuff is hard and boring. And like, it is cool to have like aspirational goals and like have interesting characters in the space. But like, frankly, like when you're trying to teach people like something that's pretty dry and boring, like keeping it relevant, simple, and easy to understand, and giving like projects that you can complete in a day. That's it. Because like if you have like a 5-day long project, like life kind of gets in the way and makes it hard to learn. So we've really tried to focus on making things that are like a couple hours long projects that are fun and rewarding and don't cost that much to do. So I'm glad that that resonated with you. And we've been working really hard to make people feel included, even if they're not from the same level of skill as I'm coming from, because I've now been doing this for many years and I feel like I'm a lot more in tune with everything that's going on in cybersecurity and like how things work, because I've just, you know, like this conference I'm going to, I've been going to the RSA conference for such a long time. And I used to go to the RSA conference as press with nobody paying for me in one of the most expensive parts of San Francisco, to one of the most corporate and frankly boring conferences out there, just to meet people and understand what other people, you know, were doing in cybersecurity and what journalists were interested in. And like now that I've been around a while, I feel like I have something to offer to everyone who's just getting started, no matter where you want to go in cybersecurity. So that's kind of yeah. Anyway, that comment makes me happy. Very, very glad that approach worked out for you. Let's see. All right, so some other things. I will not address that comment. So some other things going on. Let's see. First, I just want to if you have ADD, I'm sorry that I have to introduce you to Etienne Jacob. So he is a GIF animator. I would say he's like a mathematic GIF animator. That's like my primary enemy when I'm trying to work on stuff and I don't want to get distracted, because a lot of his animations are absolutely mesmerizing. So if you're interested in some cool mathematical hacker art, then this is one of my favorite accounts that I follow, is Etienne Jacob, and his stuff, I just stare at it for the longest time. All right, so moving on to some hacker tools, I want to talk a little bit about the Flipper Zero. So Flipper Zero obviously can do a lot of stuff, but I find people kind of cluster around a couple features when it comes to the Flipper Zero. And this is like the most useful features, obviously, the ones that give you the biggest bang for your buck. So RFID and I would say probably infrared are the two most commonly used features on the Flipper. I know that they put some good work into like some of their other stuff, like their oh gosh, what is it? Their like I button readers or whatever, but like I don't ever see those in the wild. And like while they're cool, I have literally never used that function. So of the things that people do use, I will say, okay, the radio, sub-gigahertz radio, RFID, and then infrared are like the three things that really make the Flipper shine. And if you have a Flipper and you've found some other cool stuff that it can do outside those three things, please let me know. But as a Flipper user, since pretty much they got unblocked from that shipping container that got seized, I have used these three features the absolute most. So, oh yeah, and then also a note that the Flippers are banned on Amazon. So between all of that, we have a number of different things we can do with RFID. And the most interesting is attempting to like clone a card or copy a card. And I've done this a couple times. So typically when you're reading one of these like MyFair cards or something like that with the RFID reader, there's a number of different things that can go wrong. One of them is that the data can be encrypted. And in order to break that encryption, you need a couple of random numbers from the actual reader itself. And then you need a more powerful computer, because the Flipper isn't actually able to do those sorts of cracking calculations itself. So they did something really clever here. What they did is they make it so if you have a card that you want to clone, let's say your hotel room card, you go over to the door reader and you read a couple times to get enough information to begin to try cracking the encryption key it's used with. Then you connect your phone to the Flipper, you transfer over the numbers that you got from the door reader, and it should be able to crack some of the keys that were used to write to that card that you want to copy. If you get all of them, then you can directly copy over your hotel room key, save it on your Flipper, and use it to open the door. Now, that's kind of a lot of steps, right? Like people think that it's as simple as just like getting access to the card and reading it, but I very quickly learned that that is not the case. So I spent my entire trip to Seattle like walking around and just scanning random doors and stuff and like trying to learn more about the way that this feature worked. So I have to say it is really impressive when it works, but it also randomly won't work. So I was able to clone a hotel card one time, and then I could not clone the same card a second time. I do not know why. And I haven't been able to clone a card at that hotel since. So I will say that sometimes this feature works a little bit, maybe perhaps a tiny bit unreliably, but it is still one of the primary interesting features with the Flipper. So I'm pleased to see more stuff coming out and basically be able to, I don't know, like take advantage of some of these cool things the Flipper can do. Because like I said, this is one of the three biggest features that you're going to want to check out and play with if you have a Flipper. And staying at a hotel room that has one of these cards is probably the easiest way to get started doing it. So highly recommend trying this out in a safe environment, because obviously if you're querying the door reader a bunch of times, like that is both like a little suspicious physically, and also if anybody's looking at the logs, it could also be seen as suspicious. So make sure you're doing this on something that you have permission to do. Some hotels don't care about this and think it's funny, and others would be horrified to know that you're attempting to clone the key. So like pick your battles. And if you're not sure, you can always buy a little RFID reader kit yourself if you want to make sure that you're not getting in trouble. Yeah, and just another reminder is like when you do have edgy marketing like this, they can get banned. Now, of course, you probably should not maybe have been buying these on Amazon anyway, because they're typically scalped and like way, way overpriced. But as James is pointing out, it looks like the flipper is in stock in the United States. I currently have 3 of them for research purposes, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and stop and let you guys have some of them at this point. I have been tuned to the flipper locator made by our friend Make It Hackin', which keeps track of the flipper stock in the United States and in other places. So it has been popping off all morning. I remember seeing on Twitter. So if you're interested, you can probably buy one now if you want one, because the logistics crunch seems to have slowed down a little bit. Yeah, so Flipper's really cool. Again, like it's very predictable to me to have somebody who has this much word of mouth around their hacking product to get banned from certain marketplaces. Currently, we can see Brazil and then Amazon are the 2 marketplaces that have kind of decided not to work with Flipper anymore. All right, another question. Where is Alex? So Alex has moved on to doing conference presentations and classes in Los Angeles, and unfortunately no longer has time to be doing these sorts of streams. You also might notice that Michael is also gone. So Vronis decided to, put me in charge of the stream for a while, which means losing some resources, and that's why our stream looks crazy sometimes, is because I'm in charge, and I have very little training in doing this. But for now, like I think I've been doing okay with managing the stream, and I hope to have more guests on soon. It's just for one person who's learning how to stream, having like remote guests and stuff is probably not something I want to do until I'm a little bit more confident with it. But frankly, like learning how to stream and making sure that I'm able to support, like guests and stuff in the future is something I'm working on. It's just like, having the TV fall down today before the stream was enough drama as it was, having important guests on too at the same time just kind of stresses me out a little bit more than I need to. But anyway, yeah, we will have more people on the stream hopefully again soon. It's been a little weird, honestly, to not have a co-host, because if you go back and look, this last month and a half, 2 months is the only time in like the stream's history that it's just been me the whole stream. But honestly, I'm kind of getting used to it, and I don't really mind it that much. So yeah. All right. Let's see. What is somebody accusing this of being pre-recorded? It is not, Zoe Ronan. You think these are the same questions every week? They're always different. Okay. Anyway. So what else do I have to show off this week? So I have a number of different news pieces I'm going to go over on Friday. Also, I'm still taking recommendation for sticker makers. Like we're going to be at the RSA conference, and I want to give away more and more stickers. So if you have any good sticker recommendations, I'm currently taking them. And also, I just want to recommend, if you're following me on Twitter, you can also follow me on Mastodon. I'm attempting to go over to that a little bit more just because I like the platform better, even if it is the Linux of kind of social media platforms. Oh, yeah. And as you can see, I'm also making some new pixel art for our Nugget. This one starts weeping openly as soon as it hits an error and crashes. So you can look forward to some more emotional nuggets on the next version of our USB Nuggets. All right. So now I'm being accused of an AI stream. That would actually be cool. Like I think at this point, if you could just have an AI respond to most of these questions, like they would probably do as good of a job on some of them. But I will say it's super generic when it comes to a lot of the advice it gives for cybersecurity. Although it's like very rarely like wrong when it comes to like big picture general advice of like best practices and stuff. It's actually fairly good at that. But no, I'm not a stream yet. We'll see. All right, so another question about the Flipper. Did I try the GPIO on the Flipper? Are there any interesting projects that can work with the Flipper? So, all right, I've been staying on top of this, and I haven't really tried it myself, mostly because they're expensive. They're more than $100. So if I'm going to fry a Flipper, like it's not going to be over like trying to, like run an LED on it or something. I really need to have a bigger, more interesting project than just like plugging in something stupid in order to be interested in ruining my Flipper potentially, because GPIOs are a little bit more risky. Like I don't know exactly what's going to happen if plug it in backwards or whatever. I don't know how much protection has been built in. So this is I mean, around now it actually probably is the cost of a Raspberry Pi, but this is no $20-$30 Raspberry Pi. This is like $120-$130 thing. So I'm a little bit more cautious about this now. Are there a number of different things you could do if you added like a motion sensor, or if you added like a board that allows it to do Wi-Fi or something like that? Yes, definitely. And I've seen some really interesting add-ons. I think the Marauder had like an add-on board for the flipper where you could like plug it in kind of all ugly and then run it as an app on the flipper, which I thought was really cool. Because the one thing that Flipper doesn't really do is Wi-Fi stuff. So these add-on boards, like I actually ordered their like S2 add-on board because it said it was for Wi-Fi. And then when I got it, I realized it's for like Wi-Fi debugging and it has no offensive capabilities. So I kind of was not as interested in that. If anybody else has gotten the Wi-Fi add-on board, like I was initially very allured by that and thought it might run some sort of cooler, interesting apps, but I got it and it doesn't, at least as far as I can see. So yeah, so far I have not seen any interesting projects for the flipper that use GPIO. Frankly, though, you would think that some basic ones like supporting like a passive infrared sensor to sense motion or something and make it automatically turn on or do something like when it detects something, like that sort of thing should be relatively easy. So I would love to see, I don't know, I would love to see some support of like common languages that would allow other people to do that. Maybe it's wishing too much for like circuit Python or something like that, but being able to like, trigger an application to run with certain parameters or something based on GPIO input or output, like that would be pretty cool. I would be really interested in that. All right. When is banana time? Probably soon. Thank you for the question. See, the questions do always change. All right. So I also am going to be doing a class in oh my gosh, at the at the end of the week in Los Angeles. I'm actually flying to Los Angeles in a couple hours, so it's going to be a very big temperature change. But we're going to be at Null Space Labs doing some of the games that we're doing at the RSA conference, and then like a couple new ones, or rather at least one other new one. So if you're in the LA area and you're interested, I think there's still room in the class. It is Cyber Weapons Lab LA, and we're going to be doing a Wi-Fi duel. So the Wi-Fi duel is going to be using a Linux computer to try to grab a handshake and then crack it faster than your opponent, and then basically log in and hit a button. And whoever gets it first is the winner of the duel. I'm still thinking about how I want to structure it. I think we'll have a couple rounds running simultaneously, but it's going to be really fun. The second one I'm going to be trying out is called the Damn Vulnerable Nugget. So I think I'll pair people off so each one gets a deliberately vulnerable server, and your goal will be to log in with a username and password that you obtain by first brute forcing a username and then brute forcing a password. So the login contains some flaws. Well, you'll have to be in the class to see it, but it contains some flaws that allow you to use either a Python script or something like Burp Suite or OWASP Zap to brute force into the server. So it should be really fun. It's all microcontroller based and should be very low cost. So if you walk away and think it's really fun and you'd like to do it in your own community, for your own student club, for your own group or something like that, then you're perfectly welcome to. We want to make these games as fun and easy to do as possible. So hopefully I will see a couple of you there at the Null Space Labs event. We're going to be supporting Null Space Labs. I will try to get some pizza, and overall it should be a really fun night. Okay. So that is a lot of what I wanted to go over this week. We obviously have the news stream, which I'm going to be doing from RSA, or actually, no, I guess I'll be in Los Angeles on Friday. So hopefully I can still do that. There's been some like production chaos in the past where like it's just not possible, but I'm going to try to be doing the news stream on Friday as well. Yeah. I might end the stream a little bit early this week just because I still haven't packed and I've only got like an hour and a half before I'm supposed to be leaving, and I'm hosting 2 separate classes in the next week and a half. But if you end up coming to RSA, then I will be at the Vronis booth doing the Wi-Fi duel a number of times over the first 3 days. So hopefully I will also see some of you guys there. Okay, so we have a couple more questions. I will answer which ones I can, and then after that, I'm going to run and start packing. But let's talk about IMSI catching. So IMSI catching is basically building your own stingray. Oh, oops, that's the wrong comment. As basically building your own stingray and attempting to catch cell phone signals in order to determine their content. So if you're doing something like 3G, or if you're downgrading the connection so that it is deliberately using older, more vulnerable technology, then this is definitely a lot easier. If you're trying to mess with like 4G or like 5G connections, then it becomes substantially more difficult and you might require more specialized equipment just because these standards have better security, and it means that you're going to need to have a lot more stuff. in order to interact with it. Like 3G, like no problem. You can do this with like a Raspberry Pi and some additional like hardware that's not that expensive. But once you want to get up to 5G, you can expect that the complexity is going to go up and it's going to be more difficult to actually pull down data. So one thing that can still be valuable is getting like the information of anything that's connecting to you to basically place it in an area. This is the kind of stuff that like some cell site collectors will do in order to place somebody at a specific location in order for later follow-up. It doesn't attempt to like pull down data and it doesn't try to intercept information. It just tries to place somebody in a specific place at a specific time in order to log them there. So like that kind of MC catcher like might be a little bit easier for you to do, because in that case, you're not actually attempting to like connect and like look at the contents of the data going between the phone and another party. You're actually just looking at metadata. And that kind of connection is actually a lot easier to do because you're kind of achieving like a man in the middle position, but you're not actually attempting to go up any of the gnarly like encryption or encoding that might be going on in the connection. You're just reading the information that has to be offered up by any connecting device in order to provide services. Can we have a video on that later? So of the radio hacking things I do, I know a lot about Wi-Fi hacking and what you can and can't do. I know a lot less about cell phone hacking and what you can and can't do. And with Wi-Fi, like, you know, broadcasting a network and having people like happen to connect to you, that's not really a big deal. Like if you offer like open Wi-Fi and people connect to it, that's their business. If their phone automatically connects to it, then, you know, it's kind of a gray area, but it's still kind of fine. If you're creating like a fake cell tower and people are connecting it, you could be causing a denial of service attack. Like, for example, if you're not actually able to serve them data properly, it could allow their phone to connect, but then provide no service. So if they were to call 911, if there was an emergency, you would actively be preventing them from calling emergency services, and that would be a big deal. So yeah, there are ways that you could probably do this on a budget, but I don't know enough about the laws around it to be super confident in teaching how to do that. I have gotten some requests for it, but so I'm going to take a look at the projects that are around, but I would need to brush up on what is and isn't allowed because, you know, you pop up a Wi-Fi network, it's open, people's phones automatically connect to it because it says Google Starbucks. Is that like, are you in a man in the middle position? Yes. Can you see metadata? Also, yes. You can see DNS resolutions and all that sort of stuff, but is it necessarily illegal? Well, if they're the ones that joined and you didn't necessarily give them permission, you just created a network with a pretty obvious name, then like, I think that you could conceivably get away with that. When it comes to creating your own cell phone tower, I am not as certain at all. Let's see. So somebody else asks, what about a full duplex SDR? It should be possible to do that, to have one for disrupting the original signal and one for replacing it. Yeah, definitely. Like, and for that, you would achieve like a man in the middle style, like position on the network. It's just arguable as to whether or not you would be able to legitimately serve data, just because like I'm sure they're using like certificates and other things that would make it difficult for a third party to start like taking over the data and start giving them, you know, an alternative source of data, as it were. So if you did that, you could potentially read the data, you could potentially manipulate or inject things into it. But I just feel like there's probably going to be a legal issue there where if you connect to them and you can't serve data and you're basically doing a denial of service attack, that's probably illegal. So I would need to look a little bit more into it, but just be careful when doing this sort of attack, because if it does prevent people from calling emergency services, that's generally seen as a big deal. Yes. So James Randolph also mentions that there is open source equipment and software to be able to do this. So yeah, these projects are definitely out there. Just make sure you're brushing up on the law and know what you are and are not allowed to do when having another device connect to your fake cell tower. Because if it is only your device, then nobody cares. But if it's nearby people's devices, then potentially it is yeah, a problem. Have I done Haiku Pro? No, I have not. What is that? Please tell me. I'm interested. Let's see. Another person says like a hack RF1 to actually can do full duplex. Yeah, if you were doing, if you had like 2 hack RF1s, I'm sure you could figure it out. They're highly configurable and could do all sorts of interesting radio stuff. You'd probably need some, software running on a computer connected to a hack RF1 or 2. But yeah, it's entirely possible, just slightly unknown as to how legal that is. Okay, I think that we are mostly done, unless there's another excellent question. I will look into this radio stuff. Like I too find it super interesting. And because I usually am getting people's like cell phones to connect to me via Wi-Fi, I'm obviously interested in what the options are for doing cellular data stuff as well. I just feel like it's going to take a little bit more than like one of these super cheap microcontrollers that I use to pop up a fake cell phone tower. But as I said, there's a lot of stuff out there for 3G, 4G, and 5G. I'm sure that there's some open source stuff that requires a little bit more expensive equipment, but just please do not do denial of service attacks by accident. Make sure that you are not doing that, because that's the kind of stuff that gets people to complain, and then the cell carrier will eventually investigate, and you could get in trouble. So, all right. Looks like that's all the questions we have for today. Again, I'm going to be taking off like 15 minutes early or so because I'm flying into Los Angeles. And if I do happen to see you at Null Space Labs at the Wi-Fi hacking duel, then I will be very excited. So hopefully I'll see you there. If you're interested in more information on that, you can check out Cyber Weapons Lab LA on Meetup, and you should see all the event information there. Again, hopefully I will also see some of you at the RSA conference. It's going to be a lot of fun. And this will be the second year that I'm going to be doing the Wi-Fi hacking duel. So I'm sure there will be gift cards given out, a lot of other fun stuff while we're there. All right, everyone. So I will see you on hopefully on Friday, where I will be at some random location attempting to do the stream. And we'll see if I can get through the news. But I imagine it should be just fine. And hopefully Killian will be there as well. So we can answer some of your questions on the stream then, as well as go through the hacking news of the day. And a big shout out, per usual, to our sponsor, Varonis. If you want to check out the event of the week, I believe it is still right now the like the cybersecurity roundup, like the state of cybercrime, which is really, really fun. If you're looking for kind of an overall view on what's going on in the cybersecurity world, you can check that out at varonis.com/Kody. And we will see you all next time. Bye.